What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over several mistakes that could be costing you games in Fortnite Chapter 7. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, comment down below what mistake you think has been costing you most this chapter, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is EvolvedJake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So a lot of these topics I've already made videos on, but not everybody watches every video, and I know recently for the holidays a lot of people were away from the game for a period of time, so this is a good recap video if you are returning to the game after a break. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of players making this chapter is being way too reliant on the twin hammer shotguns, and this dual shotgun has like a very high fire rate, and it is very good. For most people, this is going to be the best shotgun in the game by far. However, the pump is still very good, and when you play correctly, it can, eclipse or overtake the twin hammer shotguns. But even if you want to use the twin hammers, what I'm talking about is people that are playing like too brainlessly all the time, just hopping on people, spamming with the twin hammer shotguns. And this can be a bad habit to have, but it can actually work a lot this chapter because these shotguns are so good. The problem comes down to third parties a lot of times, and these fights being kind of coin flippy. If every enemy you see, you're just hopping on trying to like barrel stuff them with these twin hammers, you'll win some fights that way, you'll win some games that way, but a lot of times it's going to be kind of a coin flip, and you're probably going to take a lot of damage in the fight, forcing you to use heals and making you more vulnerable for potential third parties, which I know is something a lot of people have been struggling with this season. So even though these spammy shotguns are good, try to play like correctly in some situations, try to use cover properly, try to peek properly, get your opening tags, and then push the enemy off that. If a lot of your shotgun fights are you just jumping on a full HP opponent, trying to be as close to them as possible, it can work because the twin hammers are a bailout, but it's kind of fluky. And if these weapons get nerfed or removed from the game, it might be a bit of a struggle for you to learn how to play more structured again. I think another mistake a lot of players make is going to be panicking versus the lightning gun. This is something I've gotten a lot of comments about and people asking me to make a video about, and I may at some point in the future, but it's not really something I struggle with, and it's not something I play against a lot. This is a weapon I feel like that kind of puts out a lot of pressure in a fight, but the actual damage output of it isn't the greatest. It's not like it's just like insta-killing people or killing faster than like the twin hammer shotguns at close range, or the Deadeye at medium to long. Where a lot of people struggle with, I think, is that like they try to play too safe and they try to play too careful and they try to just get away from this weapon. In close range, fight it with your shotgun like how you would any other fight. And in mid range, don't just sit there and let them tag you through walls or tag you around cover. Return fire versus the lightning gun, or just completely get to a long range fight and play it that way. But as I said, I think the struggle of this weapon is that it's kind of weird to deal with, and a lot of people panic, and then once they're panicking, they really mess up. But I think if you just play normal and play it like you would versus any other gun and just eliminate the person using it, you'll probably win a majority of your fights, because I really don't think this lightning gun is that good. It's kind of mid. It's just scary to deal with in some situations, and that panic, I think, really catches a lot of people off guard. And build mode, I know it's a problem. But in zero build specifically, I really don't think it's that great. Another change this chapter is that gold resets every game, and you now loot gold much faster. So being stingy with your gold is something that doesn't really make much sense this chapter. And pretty much always after I leave or before I leave my starting POI, or as I rotate through the map, I'm checking out the vending machines and hope to get a higher rarity shotgun, because typically shotgun rarity is the rarity of weapon that matters the most or will have the largest impact on fights. So I'm always checking for those shotgun vendings to get a higher rarity shotgun. Some of the NPCs around the map can do various things. What they do will be random game to game, but there is a potential chance for the NPCs to upgrade your weapon. And when this happens, it's relatively cheap for you to get like very high rarity weapons. So I'd recommend checking out the NPCs, and I'd recommend checking out the vending machines because gold resets every game, so you might as well spend it. Anytime you're struggling for heals or not able to find heals, make your way to the nearest vending machine and you'll be able to easily buy heals from it. And it's not going to be a problem for you. Also, in team game modes, having self-res is a big deal, and you can buy this from the healing vending machines around the map. So use your gold. Don't be too stingy. The katana or Forsaken Vow Blade is a very important item this season. It's the best mobility item in the loot pool, and it's a very limited item, at least as of the time I'm making this video. There's not it's not in the regular loot pool. You have to go to these gold portals that are around the map. I'll have where they spawn on screen now. But the way it works is every portal doesn't spawn every game. It's just like a random chance for the portal to be there in the match you're playing. And this is a very good item. A lot of people like landing on these portals, and this is pretty much what I do every game, because getting this mobility item gives you a huge advantage over other players in the lobby. Not only is it great mobility, but it being so limited gives you a huge advantage by having it, because not as many people are going to have it. So you're going to be able to out rotate them. You're going to be able to run away from them if you want. You're going to be able to chase them easily. Having this katana gives you a huge advantage. So I think not going for it is a huge mistake. One mistake that I do see people making with the katana is trying to use it as a melee weapon, because it technically is a melee weapon, but the main point of value from this item is the mobility aspect. In Chapter 6 and even Chapter 5, we had some really overpowered melee weapons, but the Forsaken Bowblade is very mid as an actual weapon. So you want to think of this as a mobility item and not really a melee very much. I think anytime you're meleeing people with this, things are going wrong. It's not nearly as threatening as the Typhoon Blade was, or the Bat from Chapter 6 Season 2. So that is something to keep in mind with this. And I think a lot of people weren't aware of how bad it was as a melee weapon because they don't get to use it very frequently. Speaking of other mobility items, the Wingsuit is a very common item this season, and it's good to have, especially when I'm not able to get the Blade and Shockwaves. But one mistake I see a lot of players making with this is they fly around way too confidently. When you use the Wingsuit, you are very susceptible to getting beamed out of the air because the Deadeye AR is very good. So when you use this item, you need to keep that in mind. Try to fly around cover, try to fly somewhat low, that way you're able to land faster if you are getting shot. And use it for like short bursts of mobility rather than just flying across the entire map, hoping that nobody has eyes on you when doing that. And if you are going to use this item, you need to use it more proactively rather than reactively, because the ramp up time of using it, like the start animation, takes quite a while. So if someone's like pushing you and they're like close to you, shotgunning you, and you try to use this to run away, like how you would Shockwaves or the Forsaken Bowblade, it's not really going to work. So yeah, just don't be too confident flying around with this. Know that you're very vulnerable and kind of use it sparingly like that. Another mistake or kind of thing that might be overrated is becoming a boss. This is a new feature that was added in Chapter 7. But these boss characters are not worth going for, or not worth becoming. Maybe you want their mythic weapon, but transforming you into a boss marks you on the map for all enemy players. And once they are shooting at you, they'll actually be able to see your exact health in real time, knowing how weak you are, knowing like if they should push you or not. And if you're trying to hide in a bush with a boss, they'll know exactly where you are because of that. And you also forfeit your overshield when you become a boss, or the overshield regenerating at least. So you get a little more HP and a little more shield, but the fact that your overshield no longer regenerates kind of neutralizes that and just makes it equal. But the overshield regenerating is nice because then you don't have to use heals for that amount of HP. Once you lose its ability to regen, every bit of damage you take needs to actually be healed. So I think becoming a boss has significantly more downsides than upsides, and I would not recommend becoming it. Another thing I wouldn't really recommend is using the OG loot just because it's special. So when you go through the DeLorean, you can get an OG chest, and then there's also a rift anomaly that brings OG chests. And some of these items are pretty good. Like the regular pump shotgun is really solid. The hunting rifle is really good. But also a lot of these are kind of not that great. Like the lever action shotgun has never really been that good. The 6-shooter has always been an underwhelming weapon. The Scar assault rifle has really not been great in a long time. And so feeling compelled to use these items just because they're like a special thing, I don't think is good if you want to win. If it's exciting to you to use it and you have fun that way, that's great. But you're 9 minutes into a video about trying to do better in game, so you probably care more about that. And so using these weapons because they're like the shiny special thing, I don't think is really worth doing. Most of them aren't that good, but a few are solid. I mentioned self-revive earlier and how you can get it out of the mending machines. You can also just find it from looting, but this is an item that is somewhat impactful, especially in team game modes. A lot of times in team game modes, you would get a knock and then you would kind of bait that knock. At the very least, you would know that that person just isn't going to get up unless a teammate dedicates time to making that happen. As self-res is now, that knocked body getting out of sight and getting alone time means they could potentially have revived with self-revive while their teammates fend you off. And so The way I look at this is anytime you get a knock, you probably want to try to thirst that knock and finish that person off, especially in solos. I've been surprised seeing some clips where people knock somebody and then just run away in solos. But in solos, it's incredibly obvious. If you knock somebody, they have self-res, so you definitely want to thirst that. But in team game modes too, I find myself caring more about thirsting knocked bodies than I would previously. This season, anytime I get a knock, if I have an opportunity to thirst that and get the person out of the game, I'm going to do it, because you don't really know who does and doesn't have self-revive until it might be too late. So just thirst knocked bodies. I think that's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Not being mindful of third parties, I think, is something a lot of people are struggling with this season as well. I will make a video about this in a few weeks or something, few days, who knows. But I've seen a lot of players complaining about third parties this season and how it's like the most third party centric season ever. I feel like that gets said pretty much every season. But anyways, as soon as you're fighting, the moment you're fighting, before your fight is even concluded, know that other people in the area are likely going to try to third party you. And as soon as that fight is finished, you probably want to try to reposition and get ready to deal with, impending third parties. But even before the fight is finished, this is something that you may need to keep in mind. This is partially why mobility items are so good. If you get a kill, you can katana away to safety, kind of bait your loot and see if any third parties are coming in a way that you maybe wouldn't want to do with shockwaves, because you might not want to waste a shock just for that. But either way, keep in mind third parties are going to be a thing. It's always going to be a problem. Anytime you fight in a battle royale, other people on the map are going to try to third party you. So it's something you need to be thinking about at all times and trying to react proactively for, rather than just reacting. If you are in a situation where you need to react, knowing how to reset fights properly is also very important. I made an entire video about this a few days ago. That's on my channel. But a lot of players struggle to reset fights. They just run away constantly. And sometimes that'll work. You might get far enough away from the opponent that they stop chasing or they don't have mobility. But a lot of times if the enemy is chasing you, especially if they have double mobility with katana and shockwaves and you don't, they're going to get on you. That fight is eventually happening. So when you're trying to get away from an enemy and reset a fight, you're trying to get to some sort of cover, potentially heal if you have the time to, but also look for opportunities to get damage on the enemy chasing you. That way you can kind of neutralize that threat. Maybe get them to stop chasing you, maybe just eliminate them, they back off and heal. There's various things that can happen, but either way, getting that damage back on them alleviates some of that pressure and buys you time to heal. But if you just constantly run away, you're kind of at the mercy of the enemy on whether or not they decide to stop chasing you. So knowing how to reset fights is very important this season. It's very important every season, but it's something that I see a lot of people struggling with, seemingly, especially in the context of like third parties. And then the final thing I want to talk about is the being able to ADS, or aim down sight while in air, feature that was added in Chapter 7. This is actually incredibly good, especially if you're like shockwaving on somebody. You can swap to your AR and kind of get shots on them as you're on your way to them through the air. And getting in the habit of doing this is something that I think is good. It's not like every time you're in the air, you need to be aiming and shooting people, but taking advantage of this and kind of making it somewhat of a habit and something that you're comfortable doing is something that will benefit you in the long run for as long as it's in the game, because it's probably going to stick around for quite a while. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this to be helpful, informative, interesting. As always, if you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.